World of Skimmer podcast. We are on to our final podcast in the series, looking at characters in the 6 books across the novel series I wrote about the world of deep sea mining set in 2040. And against a backdrop of deep sea mining, we have a plot involving the rise of 2 AIs, one by the Chinese, originating on the GlobeCorpMining mineral harvester, and the other one from XZ Ocean Academy on board a skimmer that involves a type of AI, and also the rollout of retrofitted reverse engineered UFO technology, and all that's tied up in the plot. And we've got these characters, both the skimmer crews, the sea hunters, the staff at XZ Ocean Academy, and of course Harvester crew. Now this last podcast we're going to look at Dr. Tsien. Now he's the Chief Operations Officer of GlobeCorpMining. So I thought I'd end the podcast, or the 14 podcasts in the series, with Dr. Tsien as the COO, because a lot of the plot revolves around what his agenda is towards book 6, because we're not quite sure where his thoughts lie in terms of the long view and playing the long game as the COO of a Chinese global mining corporation. So he's a senior official. He reports to the CCP subcommittee for deep sea mining in the area, and of course they're a major tenure holder, the Chinese, in the area for deep sea mining. So they have a giant harvester ship there that nodules are delivered to for processing and offloading to ships that go ashore, and they are also tied up in the skimmers, having helped design and contribute to building the skimmers and funding the crew program through Australia and through XZ Ocean Academy in New Caledonia. Now he's got quite a complicated family dynamic behind him, because his wife is gravely ill through the book series, and we learn more and more about that as the series progresses, and the impact that has on Ying Wei, his daughter, who's the Chief Science or Research Officer on the Harvester, and his son Chang, who's a crew member on a skimmer from XZ Ocean Academy. And he sent Chang there to try and get him on the right track. Chang had a lot of animosity towards his father over what happened to their mother. We know there was an accident at some point in a lab. We know Ying Wei carried on the work with drones and AI technology or biotechnology. So we know there's a link there somewhere with the past and the reason behind their mother being gravely ill. And Chang, of course, blames Dr. Tsien, his dad, for that. And everyone's his enemy, and he's angry at the world. Now Ying Wei's very close to her father, Dr. Tsien, and tries to, I suppose, be the go-between between Chang and her father. Now Chang's quite envious and jealous of Ying Wei in a number of ways, and he has to work through that through the book series, and he does work through his emotions, and especially as we get into book 5 and book 6, where he becomes quite central to the plot as it unfolds, and Ying Wei and the danger Ying Wei gets into, and Chang really steps forward and comes into his fore when he sees his family becomes threatened or in significant danger. Now, Dr. Tsien was educated in the US, originally at Caltech, and then he of course returned to China and was integral in development of the Harvester program, and carried on from there and became quite a senior official linked to the CCP subcommittee. So he, of course, helped fund the skimmer crew program at XZ Ocean Academy and built up quite a personable relationship with Jonah. Now that further confuses the issue in the book series for the likes of Rick, who sees it as a going national security concern, that Jonah has a personal relationship with a Chinese global mining company, especially with Project Cygnus and trying to roll out this program for trialling these overdrives of reverse engineered UFO technology. And when they stumble across this AI that one of the crew members develops, Rick sees the potential in that in terms of linking it up with these retrofitted overdrives from UFO technology. Now, when the other AI the Chinese are working on rears its ugly head in the area and ends up turning out to be a hive mind, this really pushes Rick into the completing the overdrive trials and trying to protect the AI that they've got as well. So he sees Dr. Tsien as a major threat to that. And of course, he's trying to convince the council that oversees the Exeter Ocean Academy, Rickers, to separate out the crew monitoring program from GlobeCorpMining and the crew training program as well, and look for other sources of funding linked to their own technology that they've developed. So that's an ongoing argument there, and because he's not quite sure where Dr. Tsien stands in terms of his agenda, not his loyalty, because we know his loyalty is to he's a Chinese national, so his loyalty is to the CCP subcommittee and the GlobeCorpMining Deepsea mining company, but family is very important to him as well, not at the expense of his work, and he tries to balance the needs of his job, his responsibility to the CCP subcommittee, and with running the Harvester program and getting all this research up and running. So he plays the long game, and we're never quite sure what his end game or his agenda is in the end, because Dr. Tsien is playing both sides. He's got this close relationship with Jonah at Exeter Ocean Academy and a vested financial interest in ensuring that up into the future, and alongside that, his loyalty, of course, is to the Chinese party, CCP, and the GlobeCorpMining company. But his family's all tied up in that, because of course his son is on a Skimmer crew and was trained through the academy, and then he's got his daughter on the Harvester. Now that crosses over with where Sue fits in as well, because there's some sort of family connection with Sue that we're not quite sure of in Dr. Tsien there. Ying Wei and Chang's father never really lets on as to why he continues to, I suppose, protect Sue and accept the mistakes she makes, even to the point of threatening and shooting and trying to kill his daughter. So there must be something that connects him there that prevents him from carrying through with just getting rid of Sue altogether. So he seems to be playing both sides, and it leads us to think, well, how much does the CCP subcommittee know about all this as well? I mean, they must be well informed about what the end game is and why Dr. Tsien takes the approach he does, because Sue's got an alignment with the PLA Navy, and of course GlobeCorpMining is embedded ashore within a military complex or Chinese naval complex. So we know there must be a link there somewhere, and at a very high level in the CCP there must be some sort of agenda linked to an ultimate end game where they're trying to play a number of different sides across this long term to see which one comes out on top without giving their hand away too quickly or too early. So that becomes quite interesting as we get into book 5 and into book 6 in terms of Dr. Tsien and where he sits with GlobeCorpMining, the CCP subcommittee, the PLA Navy, Sue, and of course his family. So you've got 4 or 5 different agendas there with varying levels of loyalty. And his wife, of course, who's gravely ill, but that's part of the family situation. So that adds a very interesting dynamic to the novel series as it progresses through, and Dr. Tsien's quite central to that. Now he plays a more a back role in books 1, 2, and into book 3. He's there in the background, but not as a prominent character in the series. But as we get into books 4 and 5 and 6, and he appears more often and comes out to the Harvester, and the chaos ensues with Sue, he takes a more active role in the series in terms of his appearance and the length of time we see him in the chapters carrying out his role, and probably in some respects quite unnecessarily, in terms of him coming out to the Harvester, because that's not something he always does, but he always catches up with his daughter when he's out there as an ongoing concern, and he seems to play off between Sue and Lee, and Lee's quite loyal to Dr. Tsien, of course, in carrying out his agenda, but confronts Sue on the Harvester when the crew is split into two in terms of their loyalties between Sue and Lee. Now, Dr. Tsien doesn't take sides in that, so it appears he's a bit standoffish. He does shelter Sue, but he also supports Lee, and of course his son is on the Skimmer. So it becomes quite a dynamic or play between characters based around family loyalty versus corporate loyalty in the area within the deep sea mining industry. And when we get into book 5 and then into book 6, and that all culminates in a standoff amidst the chaos of this hive mind and the Skimmer overdrive trials being completed, we find out just where everyone's loyalties and agendas sit by the end of book 6 in the series. So that about sums up the characters. It's been quite a long podcast series going through all these characters, but I've used the characters as a platform to explain the world of Skimmer and what's going on within the deep sea mining industry in the area set in 2040. So the characters, through the characters, we make sure, well, I made sure that they were complex characters and also representative of society in terms of strong female lead characters. We've got characters with various underlying issues that they have to cope with or deal with out in the area as a small dynamic team in the deep sea mining industry, and then of course how things operate in the military versus how they might operate in a Chinese global mining corporation versus being on a subsurf mining skiff that contract is leased to collect nodules but are crewed by a relatively young crew trained at an academy. And of course we have a Chinese family sitting around that. So I'll leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed the podcast series and have a much deeper understanding of the world of Skimmer across the 6 books. Now, of course, book 4 is coming out in the next few months. The book 5 and book 6 will be out in the next couple of years. So we'll see how we go with the series. I hope you enjoy reading them, and I look forward at some point to doing a few more podcast series on some different aspects in world of Skimmer, including where all this UFO technology came from, and probably a bit more on the rise of AI. So thank you very much for listening.